A new report by McClatchy says several prominent Russians were in contact with the National Rifle Association during the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The report details the meetings, which included dinners and drinks between Russians and NRA representatives. The influential Russians are considered to be members of President Vladimir Putin's inner circle or involved with the Russian Orthodox Church. This report comes a month after the Senate Judiciary Committee filed documents saying the Russian government used the NRA to help funnel financial support to candidate Trump during the 2016 campaign. In April, the gun group said it received contributions from 23 people linked to Russia since 2015, but has denied the funds were used in the campaign. Gordan is an investigative reporter for McClatchy and wrote that report. He joins me now from Washington. Greg, this is really interesting. What can you tell us about these elite Russians and their meetings with NRA officials?
Hi, Elaine. The meeting that we most focused on occurred in December of 2015 in Moscow, and two of those at the meeting who haven't been described before were the deputy at the time Deputy Prime Minister for Defense of Russia, and that's Dmitry Rogozin. And in addition to Minister Rogozin was the head of Russia's largest charity, Sergei Rudov. And Rudov works for a man named, an ultra-nationalist named Konstantin Malafeyev. Mr. Malafeyev at the time was under U.S. sanctions imposed in 2014 in response to the Russian incursion in eastern Ukraine and Crimea, as was Mr. Rogozin. So this becomes somewhat unseemly from the start, and it's worth noting that at the time, Russia had already begun both hacking Democratic National Committee emails and the emails of Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, John Podesta, and also operating through its troll farm in St. Petersburg to send out social media messages that were aimed at dividing Americans and ultimately at electing Donald Trump.
Well, will this information impact Special Counsel Mueller's Russia meddling probe?
Well, that's one of those questions that remains to be seen, but it's worth noting we reported this, the existence of this investigation in late January, and my partner Peter Stone and I. And we learned recently that the investigation is still underway, which suggests that there's something there. And also, typically, I mean, the FBI and veteran prosecutor and former FBI Director Mueller wouldn't open an investigation if they didn't have some evidence of wrongdoing. That said, of course, we may never find out what the results are of this inquiry because it's a counterintelligence investigation, and if they don't bring charges, we may never find out any specifics. If I can say what's most, I think, interesting about the NRA inquiry is the fact that of the $30 million that the NRA put behind Trump in the 2016 campaign, which represented his largest backing from any group, $21 million of the $30 million would be described as dark money. It was money spent by the NRA's lobbying arm, and it's not required to be made public. The donors are not required to be disclosed publicly. So a big question is there money that landed in this fund, this lobbying fund, that came from perhaps a shell company or was otherwise funneled in from a source that originated in Russia?
Well, the NRA's general counsel said the group accepts foreign donations but would not divulge any of the group's anonymous donors. Has the NRA traced any of these sources to fight back against allegations?
Well, let me say, as far as we know, the NRA's general counsel was talking about the NRA there and not so much about its lobbying arm. It's not clear that he was disclosing anything about the donors to the lobbying arm because they're all anonymous, so he wouldn't necessarily be describing. But I'm sorry, your question, Elaine, one more time?
So the NRA's general counsel said the group accepts foreign donations but wouldn't divulge any of the anonymous donors. But has the NRA traced any of these sources to kind of fight back against these allegations, to try and push back against the notion?
That's interesting, and it'll be interesting to know if the NRA is doing any kind of an internal audit to examine the true sources of all of its donors. And it is true that John Fraser, the NRA general counsel, stated in a letter with exchanged with Senator Wyden of Oregon a while back that they did not use and do not use any foreign money in U.S. elections. So the question is there money that was in some way camouflaged?
Greg Gordan in Washington for us. Greg, thank you very much.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you.